This is the story of Joseph, son of Jacob, a boy whose gift of dreams caused envy and misunderstanding. A brother sold for silver by the brothers he loved, a servant who rose from slavery to the heights of Pharaoh, a prisoner left in a dungeon and forgotten, but also a ruler who governed the whole land of Egypt, forgiving, ready to lovingly receive his betrayed brothers. A man who rose not by force, by faith in God's plan. His life was shattered by betrayal, hardened by suffering, and redeemed by grace. This is not just an ancient account, it is living history, the story of every heart that has ever been misunderstood, rejected, or learned to wait in silence. Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob, and from his earliest years, he stood apart from his older brothers. Exhibiting a unique depth of understanding and perception, he captured his father's attention and affection, which went beyond the ordinary. This fondness manifested in many ways, as Joseph was surrounded by care and admiration since childhood. Jacob gave him a coat of many colors, distinguished by its brightness and elegance, a symbol of distinction that not only became a source of pride, but also the root of his brother's jealousy. This vivid garment connected Joseph to his father as a thread of favor, yet it inflamed the brothers' resentment. They felt injustice and left out, and as their father's preference for Joseph grew, so did their secret plots against him. However, it wasn't just his coat that set Joseph apart. He had a remarkable gift for dream interpretation. In one of his dreams, Joseph envisioned bundles of wheat representing his brothers. In the dream, all the bundles bowed to his vision that stirred confusion and indignation. When Joseph, with innocent confidence, shared this dream with his brothers, their animosity deepened further. They began to resent him for both his speech and his visions. But this wasn't the only dream Joseph experienced. In another vision, he saw stars, the sun, and the moon going before him. This dream was so profound that even his father Jacob was unsettled. While he scolded Joseph for the apparent hubris, Jacob also pondered over the deeper significance of this vision, keeping it in mind. Though not yet understood, these dreams foretold the significant role Joseph was destined to play. While Joseph remained unaware of their full meaning, they were indeed a precursor to his future greatness in history. Yet, his brothers could not reconcile with this idea. Their envy started consuming their thoughts and hearts, fueling a resolve to rid themselves of the perceived embarrassment. Day by day, their jealousy intensified. They saw the dreams as bold and portentous. These feelings surged within them, amplifying a desire to silence Joseph. Their discussions took an active turn as their envy curled into a knot of hatred, gradually framing a plan they thought would permanently remove Joseph from their existence. What began with vibrant symbols of innocence and promise was darkening with clouds of schemes and impending trials for Joseph, for he knew not the path of legacy divinely laid before him. Following Joseph's prophetic dreams, events unfolded quickly and terrifyingly. His brothers, engulfed in envy and feelings of injustice, resolved to take a step that would forever alter both their lives and that of young Joseph. One day, while they were grazing the flock far from home, they saw Joseph approaching, sent by their father to check on them. The fury and betrayal swelled inside them, and they began to discuss a terrifying plan to rid themselves of Joseph once and for all. Some suggested they kill him and tell their father that a wild animal had devoured him. Yet Reuben, the eldest brother, despite his displeasure, was against outright murder and proposed throwing him into a deep pit nearby. This seemed to him a compromise with conscience, intending to rescue Joseph later and bring him back home. The motives were caution and secrecy, driven by envy and the desire to free themselves from their father's oversight, which Joseph, they felt, represented. They stripped Joseph of his bright coat and threw him into the dark and cold pit, where he was left alone, surrounded only by oppressive silence and fear. Satisfied, they sat down to eat. But soon a caravan of Ishmaelites passed by, headed to Egypt. The opportunity to profit from Joseph's sale altered their intentions, and they decided to act cunningly, sell him for 20 pieces of silver. Thus they did, and Joseph was soon part of the slave caravan. Meanwhile, Reuben, not part of this new scheme, returned to the pit to rescue his brother, only to find it empty, silent. In despair, he tore his clothes and returned to his brothers, aware of the traces of their misdeeds. Yet the brothers had already planned their next cunning step to deceive their father Jacob. They took Joseph's colorful robe, dipped it in goat's blood, and returned home to present it to Jacob. Lying to him about what happened, they told him Joseph had been devoured by beasts. Jacob mourned the loss of his son deeply, unaware of the true reason for his disappearance. Yet, this was only the beginning of Joseph's journey, with his path of interpreting dreams and showing hope yet to unfold. Sold into slavery and taken to Egypt, Joseph found himself in a new, unknown world where an incredible destiny awaited him. These harrowing circumstances were to serve as a catalyst for the future, creating one of the greatest stories of faith, grace, and purpose. Sold into slavery to a caravan of Ishmaelites, Joseph found himself in Egypt, far away in unfamiliar land filled with new trials and possibilities. There, he was purchased by Potiphar, the captain of Pharaoh's guard. Joseph became a servant in Potiphar's household, where his diligence, wisdom, and virtue soon caught everyone's attention. From the very beginning, Joseph demonstrated a remarkable capacity to adapt to his new circumstances. Though a foreign stranger, far from his family and home, his faith in God remained unwavering. He understood that he was called to endure not just physical labor, but also spiritual resilience. The Lord's blessing was upon Joseph. Everything he did succeeded. In a short time, he gained Potiphar's respect, who appointed him overseer of his entire household. Joseph was entrusted with managing all of Potiphar's possessions, and under his guidance everything prospered. However, Joseph's life was not without its trials. Potiphar's wife turned her eyes upon the young, handsome Joseph. Her passionate desires lead her to try and seduce him. But Joseph, steadfast in his principles and his faith, refused. He knew that the coming would betray his master and transgress God's commandments. Wounded by rejection, her pride turned into hatred. Consumed by anger, she falsely accused Joseph of attempting to seduce her. Potiphar, despite Joseph's many merits, he was thrown into prison. But even there, the Lord did not abandon Joseph. His virtue and wisdom once again distinguished him among the prisoners, and soon the warden entrusted him with responsibility. Joseph demonstrated that even in the darkest of circumstances, one could maintain faith, hope, and dignity. During his years in prison, Joseph encountered the courtiers, the cupbearer, and the baker, whom Pharaoh had confined to the dungeon. Each of them experienced prophetic dreams whose meaning they could not understand. Using his gift, Joseph interpreted their dreams. One of them would be restored to his position, while the other was doomed to perish. And everything unfolded exactly as Joseph said. Through his gift of dream interpretation, Joseph began his ascent from a prisoner to someone capable of reaching the upper spheres of power in God's plan. He did not yet know that his journey, marked by suffering, would lead him to fulfill a divine purpose and save many lives. Joseph's story continued, and his gift of dream interpretation became the key to his release from prison and ascent to new authority. One day, Pharaoh of Egypt had peculiar and disturbing dreams that none of his wise men and magicians could explain. His troubling visions involved 7 fat and 7 lean cows, as well as 7 full and 7 thin ears of grain. None of the Egyptian scholars understood them, but the cupbearer, whom Joseph once restored to his position, recalled his own salvation in Joseph's gift. He told Pharaoh about the youth in prison who could interpret dreams with astonishing accuracy. Pharaoh, eager for answers, immediately summoned Joseph from the dungeon to appear before him. Before the Pharaoh, Joseph explained the dreams, saying they foretold 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of harsh famine that would grip the entire land. He advised Pharaoh to gather surplus grain during the prosperous years and store it in reserve to prepare for the famine. The Pharaoh was astounded by the wisdom and insight of the young man and not only believed his words, but appointed him as the second most powerful man in Egypt, charging him with leading the nation's preparations. Joseph was given new clothes and Pharaoh's ring, symbolizing his authority and command. Joseph began his work, creating a system of grain storage and resource management. He traveled throughout the land, overseeing the construction of granaries and instructing people to prepare for the impending hardship. Under his leadership, the nation thrived and was ready for the famine. When the dreadful years of famine arrived, the whole region, including Joseph's homeland, Canaan, suffered from the scarcity of food. But thanks to Joseph's foresight and efforts, Egypt was the only land with abundant reserves. Pharaoh witnessed how Joseph's ingenuity and wisdom brought salvation not only to Egypt but to many surrounding regions. With each passing day, Joseph's reputation grew, and he became a symbol of hope, wisdom, and care. In these challenging times, he proved that even the most complex circumstances can be overcome if one follows their faith and employs their talents for the greater good. Years of famine continued, and in Canaan, like in other lands, it became increasingly difficult to obtain food. Joseph's family, his father Jacob, and his brothers found themselves in dire straits, struggling to survive. News of Egypt's abundance reached them, and Jacob sent his sons to the land of Pharaoh to buy grain. Joseph's brothers arrived in Egypt and came before him, but they did not recognize him. Clad in magnificent Egyptian garments, Joseph was now a powerful man, second only to Pharaoh. However, Joseph immediately recognized his brothers. Emotions surged within him, bitterness for the long years of separation, feelings of betrayal, and yet joy at the chance to see those he still loved. Joseph chose not to reveal his identity right away. Instead, he decided to test his brothers to see if they had changed. He accused them of being spies, forcing them to speak of their family and their youngest brother Benjamin, who remained at home with Jacob. Joseph demanded that they bring him to Egypt, or else they would not receive their grain. The brothers returned home and, with difficulty, persuaded their father to let Benjamin travel with them. When all the brothers were once again gathered before Joseph, he set a feast for them and continued to observe their behavior. To test them further, he secretly placed a silver goblet in Benjamin's sack and accused him of theft, declaring that Benjamin must remain as a slave in Egypt. This trial revealed the brothers' true character. Judah, one of the elders, offered himself in place of Benjamin so as not to bring further grief to their father. This act proved to Joseph that his brothers had changed, had learned responsibility, and were now able to protect their family. Unable to contain his emotions any longer, Joseph finally revealed who he was. He said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into slavery." The brothers froze in fear and shame, expecting retribution for their actions. But instead of anger, Joseph taught them a lesson of mercy. He forgave them, saying that everything was part of God's plan to save their lives and the lives of many others. Joseph invited his father Jacob and the entire family to relocate to Egypt, where they could live in a rich and fertile land, far from famine. The family's reunion was filled with joy, forgiveness, and the realization of how God guides the destinies of people. This story became a symbol of faith, forgiveness, and divine providence, showing that even the most difficult circumstances can lead to great blessings. Joseph, who journeyed from prisoner to savior, embodied virtue and love, capable of overcoming hatred and separation. Joseph's story concludes not only with his personal triumph, but also with the impact his life had on generations to come. Following the reunion with his family, Joseph brought them to Egypt, where they found safety and prosperity. Jacob, Joseph's father, was deeply moved to see his long-lost son, whom he thought dead. In his old age, Jacob blessed his sons, fortifying the future of his lineage. Joseph continued to serve Pharaoh, overseeing the governance of the land and providing for the people during and after the years of famine. His wisdom and foresight made Egypt a center of prosperity and influence in the region. Through his leadership, many came to know of the greatness and mercy of Joseph's God. Joseph became a symbol of divine faithfulness and its embodiment on earth. His ability to interpret dreams and make wise decisions saved countless lives and prevented disaster in difficult times. His forgiveness of his brothers and teaching the lesson of profound forgiveness remains a lesson for humanity, reminding us of the importance of mercy and understanding. He lived a life rich with trials and triumphs. In his older years, Joseph saw the continuation of his lineage through his sons Manasseh and Ephraim, who were also blessed by their grandfather. Before his death, Joseph reminded his brothers and their descendants of God's faithfulness and the promise to return to the promised land. Joseph managed to leave a legacy that extended far beyond his own life. He advanced the idea that fidelity and hope could withstand any trial and turn, even the darkest moments, into the beginning of a new, magnificent path. His story exemplifies how a person can overcome circumstances and play a pivotal role in the destiny of a people. Joseph's journey from a sold slave to a powerful ruler, from ordinary trials to extraordinary victories, serves as an eternal reminder that the greatness and virtue of everyday life can change the world.